Adolf Hitler was an ardent dog lover, at least on paper. Yes, the orchestrator of Holocaust and killer of 6 million Jews even rescued a stray terrier. So, what I'm going to discourse today and what I am going to show you is certainly not an emotionally superior appeal by an animal lover. Using my understanding of animal ethology, I am here to present different aspects of Indian stray dogs conundrum. The Supreme Court orders around it, the back and forth happened around it. I'm going to dissect and debunk many myths around rabies and reality, because I believe that enough trivialization around to this extremely complex and nuanced issue has already happened. But before I go there, Gaddafi, the Libyan revolutionary, who saw himself a projection of lion. He apparently loved lions so much. He had pet lions even. Vladimir Putin has several dogs. So our history is replete with such instances when dictators and even serial killers had kind of demonstrated examples of animal love. For example, Harold Shipman, one of the most prolific serial killers in the history of mankind, dubbed as Dr. Death. During the time he was studying medicine in Leeds Medicine School, onlookers have mentioned that Shipman used to weep at the sight of caged dogs who were there on the top of the medical institute for some testing. Jeffrey Dahmer, I think you must have heard or seen Dahmer kind of using roadkill or even hardening neighbors' dogs at the initial stage when his disturbing tendencies were first coming to the surface. However, he had his own pet dog, a spaniel, I think, named Frisky, Frisky. And Dahmer had a lot of fondness for Frisky. Coming back to Hitler, now having an animal is perhaps one of the crudest and simplistic testament of animal love, but there has been well-documented instances of Hitler's fondness towards dogs, especially German Shepherds, perhaps because they were loyal, obedient, and easy to train guard dogs. And it started with Prince and then moved to Blondie, who apparently spent time with Hitler even after World War II in his bunker. I think somehow Blondie spruced up pro-Nazi propaganda by painting Hitler's image as an animal lover. How can you reconcile Nazis' love for their animals with racial fanaticism? I think it's also just a part of their racial mania. Just like people, animals were also divided into valuable and unworthy. While big cats of prey like lions and panthers were admired, Nazi writer Will Vesper characterized domestic cats as antisocial, treacherous, false because they stalk songbirds. Cats, Vesper concluded, were the Jews among the animals. Hitler also liked pigs and silkworms. Silkworms because they are tear-proof, largely water-repellent, and fireproof silk was needed in the production of parachutes. And elementary school teachers were specially trained in silk making for this purpose. Don't trust people who don't love animals. It is widely believed so. However, it would be a logical fallacy if our brain automatically assumes the opposite, that all animal lovers are trustworthy, or those who do not particularly feel such love or demonstrate examples of their animal love are all untrustworthy. What has been found is that propensity towards violence for animals and an absolutely callous and indifferent attitude towards other species gets easily translated to even such an apathy towards your own kind. And such human beings are more inclined towards committing acts of violence, and they are generally not socially intelligent, not emotionally intelligent, and tend to commit crime. In fact, several independent scientific studies have established correlation between narcissistic neuroticism with animal love, while there has been no such positive correlation with human-centered love. So what I'm trying to establish by giving these examples, these are extreme examples, of course, but what I'm trying to tell you is that disturbing tendencies can be exhibited by both ends, regardless of what you believe or not. Whether you are animal lover, whether you speak for animal, or whether there has been demonstrated examples for you love animals, it doesn't necessarily make a person more morally superior, more emotionally sensitive.
Mad arguments, I'll tell you, completely mad arguments in the given situation, and a lot of militancy from their side.
सड़क पर आवारा कुत्ते घूमते हुए नहीं दिखने चाहिए दिल्ली एनसीआर में। आवारा कुत्तों का आतंक बर्दाश्त नहीं किया जाएगा और यह पहली बार है जब सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने आवारा कुत्तों को हटाने के लिए इतना सख्त आदेश दिया।
So that they first agree that this is not fiction we are talking about.
I think we have to move away from a very romanticized Lululand view that dogs can coexist. Stray dogs can coexist with children and elderlies on the streets, where the behavior of the dogs, stray dogs, is completely unpredictable, unprovoked, and bites are taking place.
Hey, hello everyone. Before I start this video, could you please help me out with the thumbnail of my next video? Because see, as a rookie YouTuber, I'm supposed to learn from what the big media houses and what the big YouTubers are making, right? And by looking at the thumbnail, I'm confused that whether they are making videos like whether these are dogs or dinosaurs. I'm not too sure. Don't believe me? Look at this. Also, for the longest time, I heard about state-sponsored terrorism, Pakistan-sponsored terrorism. First time I got to know a new brand of terrorism, that is stray dog terrorism. I mean, who knew?
Stray dog terrorism. Stray dog terrorism.
I guess one live and learn. Days after the draconian directive of removing strays from urban ecology came into being, Supreme Court has amended its original order, albeit begrudgingly, while many of the crucial pertinent questions still remain open and kind of subject to interpretation and implementation. And I, for one, never believed that the original ruling was supposed to be hold true even, because I did not think that the ruling came from a place of haste and anger, contrary to popular belief. I think that this originated from a very well thought of intent. This has been the plan all along, because if something outrageous has been said, naturally it is expected that there will be public backlash and a lot of opposition against it. And then what the revised statement is going to say, chances are that will be a lot more palatable, while many of the problematic clauses in the original ruling still remain. What has happened is kind of a major eyewash, in my opinion. Woke celebrity outrage, animal lovers' sentimental appeal with zero logic, mindless argument by animal activist, arrogant animal activist questioning Supreme Court, emotions has no place when human lives are in danger, is dog safety greater than human safety, are some of the headlines I have seen used by mainstream Indian media while covering this incident. Vis-a-vis, there has been an outpouring of emotions in social media. Where I have seen people are talking about how prehistorically Indian dogs are part of our culture, they were part of our religious scriptures, what judicial did with a dog. Dogs have an ancient, complex, and socio-historical relation with Indian society, rooted in our theology and material narratives. They have been mentioned in Hindu mythology scripts as Bahana of Kalbhairava, who is nothing but a fierce and powerful avatar of Shiva. Look, personal experience, overtly emotional appeal with no data, or data which is completely unrelated. For example, how many deaths happens in Delhi for pollution, and for fog bites, vis-a-vis how many annually by dog bites, and hence questioning Supreme Court's priority, however well-meaning, lacks meat. But almost a well-oiled machinery started having these diverse viewpoints. And it's a social media game. Immediately, everywhere the story has been picked up and everybody selected their preferred narrative and ran with it. First of all, there was not even a single telecast, and I can bet you not even a single telecast has told you that why that there has been an increase in dog bites at the first place. Vultures in India once were the primary consumers of animal carcasses, but their drastic population decline due to usage of a veterinary drug primarily called diclofenac has led to a significant increase in the number of stray dog population by removing the natural check on dog numbers. This medicine was used on livestock mainly to treat livestock, and whenever the vultures actually eat the livestock carcass, their kidney failed. Because of this, medicine has hugely detrimental impact on vultures, which almost eradicated 90% of the vultures from India. We actually, a lot of people who don't know them look at vultures and almost have a very put off feeling, like because they're scavengers, but they're one of the most crucial factors that held our ecosystem. With fewer vultures to consume carcasses, stray dogs had found consistent and abundant food sources, allowing for larger litter size and increased survival, which in turn increased their overall numbers. At the same time, there was rapid urbanization and there was shortage of space. So all these factors ultimately resulted in more and more dog bites and potential rabies outbreaks. Because otherwise, there was, the ABC program, what was there earlier, right? It was as effective or as ineffective like before. Within hours, this Supreme Court directive of removing all the stray dogs from Delhi and national capital regions and putting them in some yet to be made shelters, keeping them in confinement for the rest of their life without any option to go back to their original territory, come into place. This advertisement has shown up on my feed, appealing to the armchair activist in each one of us. And I think this is just this narrative building is part of a bigger problem, because immediately I saw social media got fragmented into two broad categories. One, of course, of animal lovers who work for dogs, who got dogs in their own home, like me, and those who believe that firmly it's an impractical and insensible suggestion, and another group who were of much more inclined towards human safety, and they believe dogs are the sole transmitter of rabies, and removing them from the streets are going to solve all the issues. And they started actually attacking the other group, the animal lovers, saying that if you have so much concern about them and if you have so many issues about human safety, even the dogs are indiscriminately biting children, then why don't you keep all the dogs inside? Now, how many dogs we're talking about? 10 lakhs in and around the streets of Delhi, and that means 1 million. And mind you, Delhi has not a single state-run shelter for dogs. Zero. Our capital has 20 sterilization center with a combined capacity to handle 2,500 dogs at a time. What our apex court has mentioned is not just an animal right issue or dog-specific issue. It is also a human safety and security concern. So no matter in this divide where exactly you like to place yourself, it's a much broader concern. And I would like to address that, right? Because that is the main concern, that dogs are biting and rabies, deadly. We will explore all of that. Now, suppose this relocation happens, okay? This gets implemented. What will happen? A pharmacist named Emily Kaplan appealed to remove stray dogs from the streets of Paris. Paris is always dirty, mud, filth. No art can wash it off. Such was the observation made by people in the 17th and 18th century Paris, when the city was a nightmare. Dog mace became a public hygiene issue there in 1920 because, like the way we now pick up after our dogs, nobody used to do that. Citizens' increasing intolerance of dog excrement on the streets prompted the city authorities to persuade dog owners to overcome their disgust towards their pet species. Dogmas posed a different biopolitical problem, and because pet dogs, who were the main producers of dogmas in the 12th century Paris, were effectively and legally bound to their owners. Unlike strays, they could not be rendered killable, and thus exposed to sovereign violence on the streets and in the pound. As for the strays, a large-scale slaughter of dogs were carried out in Paris in 1880 to control disease like rabies. Former Union Minister and animal rights activist Maneka Gandhi briefly mentioned about this while opposing Supreme Court's directives. I have provided you more context. Now, this created unintended consequences like severe rodent infestation. If you have seen my Prani video, you know quite a bit about rodents, I believe. They are not dirty creatures at all, but they can spread a variety of disease to humans, including hantavirus pulmonary syndrome, leptospirosis, rat bite fever, murine typhus, Lyme disease, and plague. The list is not exhaustive by any means. Now, my first question is, when rat population in Delhi and the neighboring areas will mushroom with the removal of stray dogs, how our highest court has planned to deal with rising number of bubonic plague. We are doing this for controlling rabies, right? An animal lover should not bring their sentiment in this practical situation. Let's talk logic. While dogs can transmit various zoonotic diseases, rats are known to carry a wider range of pathogens and are more frequently associated with disease outbreak, as they are the disease vector. Dogs are not disease vectors. Who controls rodent infestation in roads and maintains balance? Stray dogs and cats. Removing stray dogs from the streets starts a power vacuum, and more aggressive animals from the neighboring areas will start swooping. In Paris too, lack of dogs on the streets is believed to have caused a quick surge in the number of rats in the city, spreading from sewers to alleys to inside people's home. कुत्ते ने किया काला जादू, इसके पीछे कोई बंगाली का हाथ तो नहीं? आवारा कुत्तों का आतंक फैल गया है, उसने चूहे को भेजा है.
It is likely that you'll be attacked by these people who call themselves animal lovers, and they're very brutal. So far, they've had the sway because they manage the courts and the system, and they're very loud and aggressive. And that this so-called animal lover group was very unreasonable, very arrogant, but also very loud.
But more disease will spread if you remove stray dogs. Also, how will you completely remove? Because if you remove, then neighborhood dogs will come into this place. It's not that there is a boundary that dogs from other places cannot come in Delhi anymore. So basically, even before rodent infestation, what will happen is that dogs will also not go. Or are you planning to, every time there will be dogs in Delhi street, you are planning to take them out? If you can build so many centers, then there won't be any place for humans to stay. Human right will be only affected.
But rodents will still take some time. What will happen is that upon removal of strays, within few days, almost 300,000 dogs will come from neighboring Faridabad, Ghaziabad, all these areas to Delhi, because there is a certain resource availability. All dogs were taken away. Unfamiliar neighborhood, right? Doesn't it increases biting chances more? Can you practically, because there's no barrier, right, that dogs cannot come or animals cannot come. Monkeys will come. Suddenly monkey infestation will happen. Already in the roads of, outskirts in Delhi, monkeys can be, seen. So they will come more and more. How you are preventing disease? To ensure that I don't pass on any wrong information to you at this point on and off, I'm going to refer to the National Medical Journal of India, because I'm not a medical expert nor I'm a doctor. Now, just for your information, even the dogs contribute to 99% of all rabies transmission to humans. Rabies is not caused just by dogs. It is a viral disease which primarily affects the central nervous system, leading to inflammation of the brain and spinal cord, And the rhabdovirus can be carried by cats, bats, certain livestock, horses and cattle, mongoose, monkey, squirrels, and many other animals, but I'm focusing more on Indian context. Rabies causes 20,000 deaths per year, as India is endemic for rabies and accounts for 36% of the world's rabies death. About 30 to 60% of the reported cases and rabies-related deaths in India occur in children under the age of 15, as bites that occur to children often go unrecognized and unreported, or reported after a lot of time has passed.
Why are the children going and playing there? Why are old people going? Obviously, they will be bit because dogs are territorial animals. So this territory belongs to the dogs. Then why should the humans go?
Rabies death in humans are almost 100% preventable with prompt and appropriate medical care. Promptness is crucial, no later than 2 days of the bite, but rabies vaccine is effective after a dog bite too. Our body can start producing antibodies against rabies virus soon after the vaccine. Even if you are immunosuppressed, it works almost 100% with the extended dose. Once the clinical symptoms appear, then the disease is almost always fatal. And it takes weeks or even months sometimes for the clinical symptoms to appear. That's why they say the promptness is important here. Now, due to lack of education, lack of awareness, and lack of centers with rabies vaccine, sometimes people do not get the proper treatment. Whose failure is it? Our stray dogs are supposed to pay the price for that. And even before clinical symptom, as I said, almost 100%, there are occasional exceptions when the vaccines don't work for some people, and that's true for all vaccines. So why so many rabies deaths in India? Limited availability of rabies immunoglobulin, which one study has found that available in 20% of healthcares. One of the surveys is saying that it is available only on 20% healthcares all over India. So if you go to a private hospital, like us, the privileged ones, the total cost of anti-rabies vaccine, that is called ARV pre-exposure and post-exposure, I'm just checking actually one of the hospital's website only, and the rabies immunoglobulin, that is known as RIG, and the wound management would currently cost you somewhere around 35,000 to 40,000 INR, presuming no hospitalization is required. Now, vaccinating dogs, that's why is most cost-effective strategy for preventing rabies in people. Infants and young children at any cost should not fall prey of rabies. Our country's apex codes both mention that, right? Thereby directing municipal authorities to pick up all stray dogs from Delhi and parts of NCR and relocate them in dedicated shelters within 8 weeks. Nearly 10 lakh stray dogs housing, finding and creating facilities, but their daily food, their upkeep, constant housekeeping, medical requirement, to name a few important needs. Otherwise, even when they are actually, if they're put in shelters, basically for the rest of their life, lifetime imprisonment for authorities' own failure. So the system failed. So for that, the entire species will pay. And for that, what will happen is that aggression will increase because they will be staying in a confined area. They will fight. And do you really believe that so many centers will be created for dogs? What usually will happen, most of the dogs will be taken away from their locality and will be put into outskirts. Such biting cases will increase actually if this gets implemented. So this is a human safety issue. According to one estimate, it is 2,000. According to another estimate, 3,000 new animal shelters required to implement SC's plan. And that means somewhere around 15,000 crores will be required. So in Delhi, it is impossible to move 1 million dogs because there are almost 1,500 to 2,000 private trans centers. As I told you, there's no single state trans center. animal shelter. So they have to be built, and that will cost 4-5 crores per center. I'm not even talking about maintenance. So just imagine the level of upkeep and the level of investment that is required. So that is downright impractical solution, first of all, to remove all the stray dogs. But the reason for the short story that I have shown to you is to establish that this is how the dogs bite. That when you actually even unwittingly displace them from their territory, that is the primary reason for dog biting. Because various research studies have proved that when dogs live in their known surrounding and they get to know people, they not only become less and less aggressive, they also develop a lot of fondness and protective instinct towards people who stay in that area. So they naturally guard, even street dogs, I'm talking about Indian street dogs. There's a Department of Animal Husbandry and Veterinary Services in Andaman, but there was no readily available state-run animal shelter. There are some private operators in and around Jungli Ghat. However, when I was thinking that, okay, even though it was pretty difficult because they were healthy, so I don't know whether anybody will take them, because usually those shelters are completely overpopulated already. However, the villagers there, they said that we will keep. It's not good to relocate the pups to some other area, at least not in this situation. Relocation will be even more shocking for these pups. But I was thinking that since there was twin cyclone indication, what if there is a natural calamity? So, I don't know where the villagers will keep and all that. And they said that be inside the home, don't worry. And they have taken the pups. So even the locals and villagers of a remote island have this innate understanding that displacing and relocating the dogs can create such traumatic experience for them that they turn aggressive. Also, where they are going in that locality, the existing dogs do not readily accept them because it's a competition for resources, right? So what happens in order to survive, if you displace dogs like that, they turn aggressive in order to survive, and sometimes mishap happens. So relocating dogs is as adverse for them as much it was for arrowheads cubs that I have discussed about. I remember when I was staying in ACS layout in Bangalore, there was network issue inside my home, and sometimes I had to step outside to take calls. And a couple of nights when I used to get important calls, I used to step out, and there were two dogs always used to kind of come and surrounded me as if protecting me, and I hardly fed them. I haven't shown them any kind of, they have absolutely no reason for doing that. Now, what about me? When I step out, I get very scared at night. 7-8 stray dogs suddenly run towards me and all that. That can happen due to multiple reasons. Either those are not local dogs, they have been relocated and the dogs are already stressed. They don't know you well enough. Or probably they get a different kind of, energetic, sometimes dogs don't like some people.
पूछता है भारत आप चुप रहेंगे कि नहीं? पूछता है भारत आप मुझे बोलने देंगे कि नहीं? सवाल करना बंद नहीं करेंगे आप? कह देता है पूछता है भारत, पूछेंगे सवाल और पूछेंगे.
Historically, Andaman and Nicobar Islands and Lakshadweep are considered rabies free, but their current status, there is no availability of rabies vaccination and immunoglobulin there. So is there any program to actually check the periodic status? No. You will not get in the entire island, in one pharmacy will not get. Tragedies, after all, are a partition affair. If someone dies due to a natural calamity, there's this mad rush to score political points. And social media immediately, just gets divided. Dogs were largely immune from this kind of politics so far, but now it is a top agenda. So that we don't get to ask these questions. Suddenly there is this immense interest. Oh, this family united to protest against this ruling. Oh, look at that. These celebrities have posted Instagram stories in favor of street dogs. They must be very compassionate. It's so easy to actually, kind of manipulate the overall collective opinion. And so that critical thinking just gets completely out of our curriculum. For example, directing stray dogs to designated feeding places is ultimately going to break out more fights between them, because the strongest and the more competent ones will grab foods and the weaker ones will perish, and this will result in a lot of infighting. And do we have any research to say that this is not going to enhance the biting incidents and the aggression among strays? Also, those who protested against the original ruling and created petition against it, they have been subjected to monetary compensation, while the fact is that this is the job for the government to do. So it seems like a very well orchestrated ploy to make this thing accomplished. It's not just about this side or that. Maybe there are three sides. The vocal majority, the one who silently suffers, and the one who is the vocal minority, apparently eating chicken and also posing as animal lovers. These are, of course, thrown at us so that we do not actually look into the matter deeply and get aggravated and within ourselves start fighting, because the SC directive has gone to such a point that they have passed this executive order that anybody registering government agencies to stop this kind of action can be booked under FIR. Even though the Supreme Court directive goes against the fundamental premise of animal conservation. So you can understand why Hitler came in my mind. And at the end, when Hitler was preparing for his suicide, some said that he instructed his doctor to give cyanide tablet to Blondie, or some version said that he himself administered to see that whether cyanide works or not. So Blondie, his puppies, and his longtime mistress, Hitler's longtime mistress, Eva Braun Spaniel, they all have been administered cyanide before Hitler's death, actually. So our history has a very twisted view of compassion and animal love anyway. So I think I have made it very clear that neither disease control nor biting, stopping, or even reducing the number of bites, just not possible by removing stray dogs from an area. It can only happen with proper ABC program. And that means if you have the resources, if you really can build so many shelters, instead create centers where animals will be taken from the road, they will be sterilized properly, they will be dewormed, the population will be controlled, and they will be left in their own territory. So far as the balance is concerned, nature will manage it. We do not have to interfere everywhere. And if you have that kind of resources, create such hospitals where rabies treatment and rabies-related vaccinations are much more readily available, so that, and make the pricing less, so that regular people, even people from village, towns, outskirts, can easily access those. Why we are not going for that? So just imagine if we have this much amount of money and you do not care about animals, or it is not your top priority list. Human safety and security, it should be your top priority list, right? Do something now for human safety and security. You can imagine how much safe every law-abiding citizen will feel when they're working on the road, when they're coming late from work. They do not have to constantly live under the panic that what can happen with me today. There's a book I would strongly recommend, Dogopolis, Chris Pearson's Dogopolis. The book boldly and convincingly asserts that human-canine relations are the crucial factors in building modern civilization, focusing on New York, London, Paris, from the early 19th century till 1930s. The book actually delve deep into how human reactions have significantly molded dogs, and in turn, how the domestication of dogs and the cohabitation with human beings have molded our civilization and in different contemporary Western societies. It's a fantastic book. You can read that. Actually, a society will fall apart whenever a specific animal will create nuisance, if you decide to remove that animal. Forget about the species supremacy that you are trying to establish here, that, okay, if anybody is going to bother a human, we have to eliminate that species. I cannot say even that it is juvenile, because I think our children perhaps will know better now. It's one of the greatest illusions of modern society is that our happiness and well-being are purely individualistic as a species. But that's not the case. It is completely interconnected with well-being of other species. So building this narrative is part of a much larger problem where two different ideologies, apparently with no middle ground, will be pitted against each other, where I will be shown this t-shirt, the other side will be shown choke collar, and nobody will pay attention to where is the real problem lies.